All right, chapter 10. Joe does a Christmas thing. I'm just looking at, there's a black cat down there jumping on my car. Anyway, here we go. You would think Maple Mountain was on fire. In every direction the trees were red and yellow. When the sun struck them suddenly, flying through windy clouds, the brightness was almost more than Marley could bear. The redness seemed to come from inside each tree in a wonderful way. It was the red she saw through her hand when she held it against the sun. The yellowness glistened like golden hair, and the wind shook it, and bits of gold spun down upon the grass. What a lovely world! Every morning on Maple Hill, Marley woke in the very middle of a scarlet and golden miracle. "This is the best time of the year," she said to Mr. Chris. He shook his head. "It's too short, Marley," he said, "and it means winter is just around the corner. To me, spring is the best time." He sounded sad, she thought. How could anybody be sad in such a world? The little schoolhouse stood among red maples. The first thing the teacher had the children do was draw maple leaves. Marley was glad it was something easy, because she wanted to look around at the other children. It was strange to be in the very same room with first graders and sixth graders and all the graders between. In Marley's own class were only 3 boys and 2 girls. "Well, now that we have Marley, it is evened up," the teacher said. "The boys will have to behave themselves." She was jolly and fat. Her name was Miss Perkinson, which had a gay sound, Marley thought. She was the busiest person Marley had ever seen in all her life. Imagine having to know everything that 6th grades must know. Every month the bookmobile drove into the schoolyard. The driver was a beautiful red-headed girl, and she left piles and piles of books. At first, Joe didn't tell much about his school. He was slow to make friends, and he missed his gang in the city. But in 2 weeks he got off the bus one day with a shining horn. He ran all the way up the hill and hardly got his books down when he began to blow. The band leader at his school had given him 1 lesson already, and he had a little book to look at. He blew and blew and blew until Mother said the roof would fly off before supper time. "Here we came to the country to be quiet," Daddy said. But he laughed when he said it, and when Joe finished blowing at last, long enough to eat, Daddy took the horn and tried blowing it himself. His cheeks went out and his face got red, and he didn't make a sound. Joe had to show him how. He showed Marley, too. Then he blew again until Mother said he absolutely had to go to bed. The band leader had told him if he learned to blow right away, he could march in the band the very next Saturday. And he actually did. There was a parade in town on account of the fair, and all of them went. Everybody in Marley's school went, and all the people who lived for miles in every direction. Everybody in the whole county went to that fair, and everybody took the very best of everything he had made or raised that year. It was the most beautiful thing Marley had ever seen, except for the country itself. Mr. Chris took a huge pumpkin and a huge ear of corn and a bunch of corn stalks that touched the ceiling in the high exhibit room. Mrs. Chris took canned corn and peaches and cherries and lots of jelly of different kinds and a wonderful big white cake. Marley was proud to notice how many blue ribbons the Chris's got, and 1 or 2 red ones besides. Mrs. Chris always took a big bouquet of her chrysanthemums, golden-colored and as big as dinner plates. Mr. Chris made a tongue twister about Chrissy's chrysanthemums. There was a Ferris wheel at the fair and a merry-go-round and all kinds of booths and games and things to eat, but the best part of the whole thing was the parade with Joe marching in it. Marley had never before noticed how handsome Joe was. He had a cocky little hat and colored ropes over his shoulders. Goodness! When she saw him lift the horn to play, she was worried. Of course she didn't say so, but she was afraid Joe's blowings might spoil the whole band. But his noises mixed in with all the rest of the noises, so it didn't matter. All the blowings and beatings together sounded wonderful. Joe blew and marched as if he'd done it every day of his life. When he marched past, Marley and Mother and Daddy and the Chris's and Fritz all began to clap. He went red in the face, but turned and grinned as he passed, and then started to blow again. The next thing Marley liked best about the fair was the place where the animals were. Everybody brought his best animals, too, and his best birds, and some of the boys and girls stayed right by the stalls to sleep. A girl at Marley's school had 2 beautiful calves she had raised herself, and she polished them up and combed them and washed them as if they were children going to Sunday school, and they won a lovely blue ribbon and a gold one besides. The horse pulling was more exciting than the Ferris wheel. Marley had never seen such huge horses in all her life. Then there were ponies and lovely cows like the ones she had had so much trouble with. She walked close beside Daddy in that barn. And the hugest geese and ducks and odd-looking chickens with crests on their heads and their heels. And rabbits and pigs and everything. Daddy kept saying, "Well, Lee, we haven't even started to be farmers yet, have we?" Mr. Chris said the people with the best jobs at the fair were the judges who got to taste all the cakes and pies and loaves of bread and cookies and everything. But Mrs. Chris said the nicest thing was the gymnasium where the flower show was. It was like a huge indoor garden. The whole fair was at Joe's school, and you'd have thought he owned everything himself when he went around with them after the parade. Marley heard Mother say to Daddy, "Thank goodness Joe is happy at that school." Whenever Marley told anything about her school during those first weeks, Joe acted quite superior and smarty. But she didn't care. Next year she'd be going on the big yellow bus right along with him, and just now she wouldn't trade jolly Miss Perkinson and the red-headed book lady for all the teachers in the whole world, and all the horns to blow besides. So there. Besides, there was Margie. She lived 3 miles down the road, and right away she and Marley were friends. Their names were so nearly twin names that they decided it was a sure sign of something special. The very first Saturday after the fair, they made a leaf house on the hill with a red room and a yellow room and piles of leaves for chairs and davenports and tables. By then the leaves were beginning to fall more every day, and some of the trees had begun to show their skeletons, twiggy and brown. It was a surprise to find that the trees along the road were black walnuts. They cracked some for Mother, and pretty soon she sent out fresh cookies and milk. The next Saturday they made another house at Margie's on a long, flat lawn. Margie's mother sent out chocolate cake. The next Saturday was Margie's birthday party, and Marley gave her a friendship ring. It was Mother's idea. So Margie brought another friendship ring to school the next week, and they decided to be bosom friends for the rest of their lives. Margie had 3 big brothers instead of 1, and one day in October the whole bunch of them went out mushrooming. Mr. Chris had to check on them, he said, before they could be sent into town to the restaurant man who canned them with a pressure cooker. Mushrooms were terribly dangerous unless you knew. There was one called the Destroying Angel that would kill people who ate it, so they were absolutely dead in a few days. There were death cups, too, but then there were lovely and delicious little ones that grew in the meadows where the cows had been. Finding them was like a game of hide-and-seek, or maybe more like Who's Got the Button. Some were barely out of the ground, lovely and white with a beautiful pink beneath, like the spokes of an umbrella. Every single one had a different shape in some way, like people. Every time Marley picked one, she rather expected she'd find that little fairy Thumbelina sitting under it. Joe was right that he could make more money with mushrooms in a few days than he could in a week or so on his paper route in Pittsburgh. But of course the mushrooms only lasted for a little while every year. Mother made mushroom omelet, and they had steak with mushrooms and chicken with mushrooms. Marley was rather glad when Joe came in one morning and said there wasn't another one to be found. The lovely leaves, too, did not last very long. The trees became more and more bare. She could see birds' nests that she had not dreamed were there. Then, one night in October, it froze. Daddy had been covering his tomato plants every night, and some tomatoes could still be picked in the cool sunshine. But this night left every plant as black, Daddy said, as the ace of spades. The whole garden looked stubby and ugly. Mother Zinnia stood sad and brown and rustled like straw in the wind. Daddy didn't seem to mind about the garden much, because soon it was hunting time. Before, he always had to go a long way to hunt, but now he said he would practically hunt his own game. Marley did not say so to Daddy or to Joe either, but she hated hunting season. She hated to come home and see piles of bright pheasant feathers and the long, thin, dead bodies of the birds, though at supper she forgot and ate and ate and ate. The men talked of nothing but hunting for a while, how they went here and there and missed and hit, and how their dogs behaved. Every morning early the sound of guns came through the windows of Maple Hill. Then it snowed. The first lazy flakes were coming down one November day when Marley walked to school. They touched the ground and faded away, but more and more kept falling. By night the ground was misty white out of the windows. In the morning Maple Hill had turned into a different place entirely. First it had been brown, Marley thought, and then all green, and then yellow and gold, and now it was white. If she must choose, which would she choose, she wondered. She asked Daddy and Mother and Joe which they would choose. Joe thought it was a silly question to ask because they didn't have to choose. But Daddy said he chose green because of his nice garden. Mother chose red and yellow. "Which do you choose, Marley?" Daddy asked. She looked out of the window. It was fairyland. All the twigs had turned to lace, and the trees were stooped with snow. Suddenly a bright red bird flew into the bush by the window and looked at her. A cardinal, the very one Mr. Chris could talk to, maybe. He had told her to put out food, and the birds would come to the windows all winter long. It was just that moment the best miracle of all. "I choose now," she said. That afternoon she knew she was right. Mr. Chris came over on his sleigh with one of the extra horses hitched behind, and she and Joe brought out that old sleigh in the barn and even found the bells in the harness room. Then they went everywhere, jingling and dashing through the snow the way people did in that old song, Jingle Bells. If there was anybody who didn't know what month it was, the school windows would tell him. After the colored leaves were taken down, there were pumpkin faces. Then huge turkey cutouts were hung up, colored with crayons, brown and black and bright red. When Thanksgiving was over, here came Santa Claus. "I wish we could just keep Santa Claus in the windows the whole year around," Margie said. Marley agreed. Besides vacation and presents and everything, it was as if she had 3 Christmas trees, because she helped with 3, their own, the school tree, and the Chris's tree. Mother sent for their old decorations, and it was fun to unpack them. Besides all the baubles and tinsel, there were special decorations to make. One simply went outside and picked sycamore balls and picked up pine cones of every size, and then came in and gilded them and hung them on the tree with Christmas string. Mother said shopping had never been so wonderful, because she simply went into town and took what was there without searching through store after store. She went with Mrs. Chris all one day, and Marley heard her say to Daddy when she came home after supper, "No crowded elevators, no artificial bells, no organs thundering Silent Night out over the buses and streetcars." Daddy laughed. "Lee, you were the city girl," he said. Mother ran to him and sat on his lap and laughed. Marley felt so happy that it was almost as if it was Christmas already. She knew there wasn't any danger this year that Daddy wouldn't light the Christmas tree. "Where's Joe?" Mother asked. "He can help me get the things out of the car if he won't pinch all the packages." But Joe wasn't around. He wasn't in the house or in the barn or in the chicken coop or anywhere. Daddy remembered hearing him get his boots out after supper. Mother said, "Why didn't you ask him where he was going? It's starting to snow again." "At Christmas time," Daddy said, "people are entitled to their secrets. For at least 2 weeks before Christmas, nobody should ever ask anybody where he is going." That was true. But when it got very dark and snowed faster and faster and faster, Mother kept looking out of the window toward the road. "Did he take a flashlight?" she asked. "He shouldn't go off in weather like this. You never know. Do you suppose he was at Chris's when I came by and I didn't see him?" She telephoned, but Joe wasn't there. Nobody had seen him at all. It got later and later and later, and Marley was supposed to go to bed, but nobody mentioned it. Daddy said, "Marley, doesn't he go with Margie's brother sometimes? Could he be there?" So she telephoned Margie's, but Joe hadn't been there at all. "I'd better go out and look around again," Daddy said. "Where will you look? Up and down the road?" Mother asked. "Whatever possessed him to do such a thing without saying a word?" Daddy asked. "In winter up here people just don't wander around. He knows that." His voice sounded cross as he put on his gloves and boots and wound a scarf around his neck. "Especially when it started to snow," Mother said. She leaned toward the window, but there was no use because it was pitch dark outside. Flakes pricked at the panes and made little whispers together. Marley felt her heart beating hard when she looked out, pressing her face against the cold pane. "Joe knows his way on all these roads," she thought, "but they looked different, all covered with snow." "Sometimes the snow got so deep here," Mr. Chris said, "that the fences disappeared entirely, and there weren't any roads at all." The pane misted over, and she couldn't see anything but herself reflected as if she sat outside in a little snowy room. "Dale, it's after 9 already," Mother said. "I thought Joe knew better. Why, I never dreamed. I thought he'd just be going out for a minute, maybe to see about the goats or something." Daddy acted as if Mother blamed him for something he'd done and hadn't meant to do. "I'll fix Joe good for doing a thing like this," he said. For days and days it had seemed as if Christmas was in the house already, all the good happy feelings, warmth and good smells, and the shining tree. Now all the goodness was suddenly gone from everything. "It's good we've got the chains on," Daddy said. "I'll go by Chris's first, and on the way I'll honk, see, and if Joe hears me, he'll answer. Maybe he got off the road or something." He was at the car, starting it, when the telephone rang. Mother ran to answer, saying on the way, "Marley, tell Daddy to wait a minute." Marley ran for the car without waiting for boots or anything, and Daddy waited and then sat still with the engine running and the light shining through the white moving air. Mother was on the porch already, calling as Marley ran back again. "Dale, it was Chris. He and Fritz are getting the truck out. They'll be by for you. They don't think the car could make it anywhere tonight." So Daddy came in again, standing near the door as he waited with his boots making puddles under him. "Daddy, can't I go?" Marley asked. "Mother, no." It came from both of them at the same second, so she knew there wasn't a bit of use to ask again. "Why, look at your shoes. They're wet as sop," Mother said. "Marley, take those wet shoes off this instant." At times like this, a person obeyed everything in a hurry. Marley knew that. The truck came while she shook off her shoes and socks, and she ran to the window to watch Daddy go out and the truck turn around and go away. They could hear it honking every little while as it went down the hill. Then they couldn't hear a thing except the flakes on the windows. Mother said suddenly, "I'll make hot cocoa. Joe will be cold when he gets back, and he loves hot cocoa. Marley, get your slippers on." Thank goodness she didn't say, "Go to bed." Instead, she made the best cocoa Marley ever tasted. She even went out to the car and brought in a package of marshmallows she'd meant to roll in nuts and chocolate for Christmas candy. Marley had a huge cup of cocoa with 2 fat marshmallows melting away on top. Mother even made toast and cut the pieces into little triangles and put on lots of butter. Enough for Joe and Daddy and Chris and Fritz. She kept making more and more, as if the longer they were gone, the hungrier they were sure to be. "It's simply silly to keep looking out of the windows," Mother said. "Shall we read something?" But she looked out the window once more. Why on earth Joe would do such a thing. "Marley, isn't there somewhere you can think of?" Then suddenly, thinking of Joe out in the cold while she sat in her warm robe and slippers, drinking from her big foamy cup, Marley knew. It was the strangest thing. Suddenly she simply knew what Joe had done. That morning, as they walked down to the road together on the way to the school bus stop, Joe had said something. "The only one not having any Christmas around here is Harry," he had said. "I'm going up and see him." Why on earth hadn't she remembered before? "Mother, I think maybe he went to Harry's," she said. "To Harry's? Marley, why on earth would he go to Harry's on a night like this?" Marley told her what Joe had said. He had been so busy with school and Christmas coming and all that, he hadn't been thinking about Harry lately at all. But at school, one of his teachers had said, "Christmas is the time to think about people who are lonely. For somebody living all alone, Christmas can be the saddest time of the year." "Well then, of course that's where he went," Mother said. She looked relieved, even though she went to look out the window again. Now she was watching for the truck to come back. "It's probably nice and warm in Harry's little house," she said. "But why didn't Joe come back before it got dark? With it snowing so, he might have known how we'd worry." "There must be a reason," Marley said, and stirred the island of marshmallow around and around in her cup. "Here they come now," Mother said from the window. The truck came struggling and roaring up the hill. Before it stopped outside, Mother was on the porch calling, "Is Joe with you?" He was not. They came stamping in, and Mother let them talk and tell what they'd done already. They had gone up and down all the roads in every direction. There wasn't any use going any farther than Joe could possibly have walked. They had asked at every farm. Then Mother asked, "Did you think of going to Harry's?" "Why, no," Mr. Chris said, looking surprised. "Joe knows Harry's not there now, doesn't he? About now, when winter sets in good, he always goes to the old folks' home out by Erie. Chadwick, up his road, always keeps his goats till spring. Harry drove his goats over there a day or so ago." "Did you even go by there then?" Mother asked, and she told them what Joe had said. So out to the truck again they went. They looked relieved and sounded relieved too. Mr. Chris said Harry never seemed to lock his house, and Joe could have gone in and built a fire. That old lamp of Harry's couldn't even be seen from the road on a night like this. The roar of the truck drowned his voice before he finished, and the truck was gone again through the falling snow. "I hope it's so. I hope he's there. Please, please help Joe to be at Harry's house," Marley whispered to herself, not loud enough for Mother to hear. But Mother seemed to be whispering to herself too. Everything was still except the fire cracking once in a while and that whispering of snow on the window panes. After a while Mother said, "I keep wondering why he didn't come right back when he found Harry wasn't there. Why shouldn't he try coming back? But if he'd been on the road, on his way, surely they'd have found him." The worry settled over again like a fog. The clock moved, but never in Marley's remembrance had it moved so slowly. 9:30, 9:35, 9:40, a quarter to 10, and at last it struck 10. By then, Mother was sitting on the very edge of her chair, and before the clock had finished striking, the telephone rang. Mother leaped up and ran. Instead of saying hello, she said, "Yes, yes?" It was Daddy. Marley could hear the sound of his voice. She heard him say, "All right," several times. She'd felt herself begin to breathe and knew she had been holding her breath deep down inside while she waited. "Thank goodness," Mother said. "But where are you?" Marley couldn't hear what he answered. She thought they would talk forever. Mother saying, "Well, for goodness sakes, imagine that. How awful, Dale. Yes, yes, I see. Yes, I suppose you'd better." Marley felt as if she would burst out of her skin. She began to jerk at Mother's arm. "Mother, where is he? Did he find Joe? Did he?" "Hush, Marley. Yes, yes, they found Joe all right." And into the telephone again. What a relief. An hour. Well, then I'll get Marley to bed. And she hung up at last. "Mother, what did he say?" Marley cried, and Mother leaned down and took her close and hugged her and began to laugh. "Marley, Joe has done the most wonderful thing," she said. "You were right about where he went. He was meaning to come right back," he said, "but when he got to Harry's, nobody was there. But the back door was standing open. He went in, but nobody was there, and he called, but Harry didn't answer. And then he went out back of the place where the path goes down to the spring, and—" Mother reached up and wiped her eyes. "I know where," Marley said. "It seems that Harry had gone to get his cheeses up to the house before he left, and had slipped on the ice and hurt his leg. Chris says if Joe hadn't happened to go there today, he'd have frozen. Imagine!" Her eyes were full of tears again, but she just let them go on running this time. "Marley, Joe got that old man up the steps and into his bed and built a fire and gave him hot milk," she said. Marley lay awake in bed, imagining how it had been. Why couldn't she have gone with Joe this time? She could have helped with everything. She could have helped with the fire and heated the milk while Joe got Harry into bed. Then Mother would have said, "Marley and Joe have done something wonderful." But she was only a little bit jealous about Joe being such a hero. She was mostly proud enough to die. When she heard the truck come back and Joe and Daddy came in, she couldn't bear just lying still, so she rushed downstairs. They didn't scold her at all, but let her sit by the fire while Joe told it all over again. He sipped at his cocoa and talked and talked. He acted quite smart about it, but then who wouldn't? Harry was at Chris's house now, in with Fritz, where there was a couch and a nice stove. At last they all went upstairs together. Joe stood by his door as if he rather hated it all to end, as tired as he was, the way a person will stand Christmas night or at the end of the 4th of July when the last of the fireworks is over. "Joe, what a Christmas thing to do," Marley said. It was queer, though, what happened the very next morning. As Marley came downstairs, she heard Mother say, "Oh, no, Joe. He's such a dirty old man. That awful smell." "I don't care. He can have my room. I'll sleep on the couch," Joe said. "Joe, surely there's somewhere else he can go, where his leg can be taken care of." "I want him here," Joe said. Mother looked at Daddy. Daddy opened the stove door and shoved in some coal, hard. "It's Christmas, Lee," he said. "If Joe thinks that's what people should do at Christmas, I guess maybe he's right." "I'll wait on him. You won't have to do a thing," Joe said. "I can carry his meals up, and he can come down and see the tree and everything a little while. We can help him up and down, Marley and me." "Honestly," Mother said in a helpless way, "Dale, he must have bed bugs and everything, living the way he does." Daddy stood there looking at her. His eyes looked hot in his face, which seemed to be going pale. The air had a big, important feeling all around him, the way it has around an actor, with all the lights turned on him alone, with everybody waiting to hear him speak. "Lee, we had bugs in that prison camp," Daddy said. "I had them on me when I came out, but we got rid of them before we got home again." Some of the people in camp helped each other all the time. Some others never thought about anything or anybody but themselves. I'd never known before how different people can be. And now Joe. He turned and looked at Joe with the proudest look Marley ever saw in her life. Well, I know now that Joe would have been one of the good ones. I just know that now. Marley had never seen Mother look so crushed and so hurt. Even when Daddy had been cross and tired all that time, even when he first came home and was so thin and sad. Well, of course Harry must come here then, Mother said. Her voice was slow, but very firm. I'll go and call Chrissy and tell her so. She went to the telephone and rang the little bell and waited, looking at the floor and listening. Daddy stood where he was, and Joe sat looking at the eggs on his plate. The kitchen was very still. Outside, the sun was shining on bright new snow. It was like last night again, hearing only Mother's end of the conversation. Chrissy, Joe wants Harry here for Christmas. Please tell him. Yes, Joe insists, and tell him we all want him to come. All of us. Yes, I do too. Yes, please tell him. She hung up. Daddy went over and kissed her square on the mouth. Merry Christmas, Lee, he said. Marley felt herself light and strong and happy. It was as if today, which was nothing but the Friday before Christmas, had gone running ahead over the calendar, and it was already Christmas Day. Until next time.